Now, first of all, 25 years ago, it was a much rougher business, and I would take a look at a young person and kind of, go behind the ambulance, grab them by the shirt, put them up against the wall, and go,
I want to stop you right there for a moment because you just talked about something that I struggled with a lot early on in my career, and that was beating myself up for making a mistake or missing something.
hmm
What advice would you give to a new paramedic that is in that situation where they may have missed something, they made that mistake, and now they're just beating the shit out of themselves? What would you tell them?
"Are you done? Are you done? Really? I mean, are you done? Because there's there's a much more constructive way to deal with that."
Gotta get a grip or get a hold of myself.
Welcome to Last Known Vitals. My name is John Smith, and today I'm joined by my friend Matt Cerbone. Matt has been a paramedic for over 24 years, and he's currently working as a supervisor. Matt, thanks for joining me today.
No problem. Good to see you again, bud.
Yeah, you as well. So I want to get right into this. You've been in this game for 24 years. What do you think
Yeah.
has changed the most?
I would say the relationships between the paramedics and the in-hospital staff. When I came in, it used to be a very adversarial kind of thing. It was if the nurses really didn't understand what we were, who we were. They didn't like the fact that we had a lot of autonomy. Um, they didn't know what to do with us, and it was a lot of younger guys. They were pretty full of themselves. They were kind of cocky. The business was new, and we just didn't fit. There was a lot of abrasion, for lack of a better term.
Do you think that's still a problem today?
No, no, not at all. Um, I mostly work out of the Nashville hospitals, and even with the staff that they're bringing in, as far as floats and contractors and things like that, everything is very cordial now. It's a much better relationship.
What do you think contributed to that change?
Well, time for starters. I mean, when things are new, people are generally don't accept them. They're suspect of it, and as there seems to be a familiarity, and the familiarity grows, and people become comfortable around one another, and services become comfortable around one another, it works out better.
Do you think that having experienced medics in the field guide the newer generation is helping curve that problem versus when, you spoke of earlier on when EMS really began, it was more of this they had these kind
We
of
were all very
attitudes
young.
and
Yeah, we were all very young. And now there's a better balance of people who've been around a nice long time, and then the younger generation that's coming up and coming in. And I think that if there's an issue that the staff at the hospital has, they'll bring it to us, and then we can bring it to them. So there's kind of a buffer that it really isn't truly a management buffer, but kind of a peer buffer, and we can look at the young guys and go, hey, this is how it's done. You need to get in line, smarten up, do whatever. If you're going to do this, there are ways, and you need to learn those ways.
do you find that you're having a lot of those conversations or do you feel as though that has changed enough to where it's a more rare occurrence?
It's not a rare occurrence. And the problem is EMS has always been fairly transient. Um, a lot of the younger guys are coming in, they're becoming paramedics or EMTs or advanced whatever it is as a layover to something more, whether that's medical school, whether that's PA school, NP school, whatever it is. A lot of them also become firefighters. And so there's a constant influx. So we are retraining on a regular basis.
When you have to pull somebody into the office and have that conversation, how do you go about getting through to them versus coming off as just that like typical asshole supervisor?
It's a tailored message depending on whom I'm dealing with. Now, first of all, 25 years ago, it was a much rougher business, and I would take a look at a young person and kind of, go behind the ambulance, grab him by the shirt, put him up against the wall, and go, "Hi, Junior, you're not doing that anymore." And yeah, well, that can't happen. I mean, we all know that. It's a much different world than it was back then. But it really just depends on the person and what it's going to take to reach them. Um, there are some that I will defer that conversation because, especially with the young men these days, they tend to respond better to mother figures than they do to authoritarian guys. The younger ladies tend to come towards me, and I kind of sit there and lead them down the rosy road and say, "No, it's really them, it's not you," and but this is what we kind of have to do for everybody to get along. But it's just a question of reading the employee and trying to figure out what it's going to take.
What do you think makes a good supervisor these days?
That's a tough one. What is making a good supervisor? To be a good supervisor, you have to be much more open-minded than you did in the past. These kids require a lot more of a personal touch. When we used to come in, it was, I don't care whatever is going on in your life. I don't care whatever is going um, on your truck. Go run the call. And if you don't, there's going to be consequences. Well, again, the world has changed. It's a The mindset of human resources is completely different than it ever was. They used to be a tool in which to get rid of problem employees, for lack of a better term. But these days, we work with a lot more people than we ever did because skilled labor in any field, whether it's EMS, nursing, any of the trades, skilled labor is getting very difficult to find. Young people coming in, there's too much going on the internet. There's too many side hustles. They have ways of making money I would have never considered. So the number of people that are actually going into a traditional workforce is not nearly what it used to be. A lot of these guys won't even consider a traditional job anymore. So when you start to get some folks in, we have to work a lot harder to keep them.
One thing I noticed when I was on the streets as a paramedic, they would promote from within. And I felt as though, and correct me if I'm wrong, you take a paramedic who is a great street paramedic and then you throw them into a leadership role without properly training them and giving them the resources to be a good leader. And I feel like that's kind of setting them up for failure.
It
Now,
is.
is that
It
still a
is.
traditional pathway that's still occurring, or have they changed that route for a street medic to get into leadership?
They absolutely have not changed that model. When I originally became a supervisor for Rockingham back in the old days, you're literally 20 years ago. I mean, you were, I was 5 or 6 years in, and you were what, 20 something, wet behind the ears, little kid, you and the two cocky kids on the block. And
Guilty.
yeah, guilty. It's fine because I mean, like everybody else, you had your moment and you felt super cool. And I've got an ambulance now. I've got wee woos. I've got this and that. But when I took that job, they gave me that job because they stuck me in Manchester. I had been a correctional officer before then, and they gave me the hardest shift to deal with in the company. I was hired specifically to tame that shift. So that was my resume. My resume wasn't DMS. My resume was I know how to boss, very large people around who don't like to be bossed around. That was my resume. And if they gave me crap, I gave it right back and I gave it back harder. And that's how we started. And then later on, I volunteered for management training, which really opened my eyes to how not to promote. And then I took it one step further and eventually got my master's degree in human resource management, which was really the eye opener on really how to do all of this. but it was a lot of education that I looked out for to get on my own because the traditional supervisory route and beyond that, even managerial route. I'm looking at the company I work for now, and the managers are brought up from the supervisory level. There is no, hey, this is how you become a manager. This is how you read a spreadsheet. This is how you work Excel. This is how you do all of these things. It's sink or swim on the job training, the same way as it always was. I disagree with it. I think they're missing a lot of opportunities. I'm in the minority.
It's funny that you brought up the good old days, and there's a few stories that we'll definitely touch upon in a
Yeah,
few here. But I just don't want to let go of this leadership talk real quick here.
sure.
If somebody's listening and they're interested in becoming a manager or getting into leadership, what would you recommend them do to start now preparing themselves to transition into that role?
There are a lot of good books. Just go on to Amazon. I'm an Audible fan because I don't have the time to sit and read. I spend a fair amount of time in the car, commuting, doing other things, and I listen to books that I would not take the time to read because, first of all, A, I don't have the time. B, because they're more technical, would tend to put me to sleep. So I have to have something that's keeping my attention while I'm taking in the information. And I've gotten through a lot of good material that way. That's how I got through half of my master's program. And there were a lot of titles that, there were literally thousands of pages a semester to read. How am I going to do it? I don't have time to sit and read everything. Get the Audible account, all of these really good titles. Just go looking for business, go looking for management, go looking for human resources, and you will find all kinds of things. You'll find an entire library on it.
So do some homework,
Yeah,
do some.
do some homework. You're
Okay.
you're going to have to learn on your own. I mean, the simple truth of the matter is you're going to have to learn on your own. And the funny part is that when they do a lot of the hiring, they still use the management matrices that they would look for any typical management role for experienced managers, but then they don't use then they apply it to people that have never been through that, and then they try to kind of work their way through, and it doesn't always work. And like I said, I think they're missing out on a few. So if you really want to set yourself apart, read the books, learn the language, do some studying ahead of time so that first of all, you have a better idea what you're walking into, and second of all, you have some background.
Now, I was a big fan of trying to find a mentor, and I feel like getting a leadership mentor would be a little bit challenging. Any thoughts towards that?
Depends on where you're working and depends on who your managers are. I have over the years had some very good mentors. I've had some very tough mentors, and I've had some managers that versus mentoring anyone, they would simply rather do the jobs themselves. And by the way, all of those managers wound up burning out, either getting fired or quitting or something. It really is too much work for one person. A good leader has to know when to teach and then how to delegate.
Speaking of teaching, and let's go back a little bit into those earlier days. Now, you had kind of talked a little bit how you were in corrections prior to getting into EMS, and that kind of made you into the person that you are, a little bit of a hard ass. And it's funny because anybody that knew you beforehand would warn people, hey, he can be a little gruff. And I'll never forget the first time that we worked together. And after that shift, I called our mutual friend and I said, what in the actual fuck is this guy's problem? And he just started cracking up laughing. And at that point, I was in that initial stage of meeting Matt Cerbone. And then after a little bit of time, and here's where you had a huge impact on my career and the way I think of things. And we'll try not to let it get too big here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Keep yourself contained. We were sitting in the day room, and I was a student, and there was a room full of people, and we got into a conversation about CPAP, and I had said something, and you looked at me and said, I don't think so, Junior, as you so kindly
Yeah, it
did.
sounds
And
about
Yeah, and I took my shot right there. I said, "Well, you know what? God damn it, right now. Here it is. I'm making my stand." And I said, "You know what, man? I think I disagree with you." And you said, "Oh, okay. All right. Sit down. Floor is yours. Teach me something." And there you were, this seasoned paramedic, ears open, floor was mine in front of everybody. And there I was shaking in my boots, delivered what I thought what was correct. And you sat there and you went, "Huh, that makes sense. I think I need to go read a book. We'll talk more in a little bit." And you got up and you walked away. And you did. You went and you read up on CPAP, and there was this new process, there's new thought. And I don't remember the specific details at this point. But you, right there in front of everybody, you said, "Huh, this student has something that sounds good to me, and I think I need to go do some homework." And right then
Yeah,
and there, it was that moment that I opened my eyes and said, "Holy shit, this is the guy I need to learn from." And it was from that day forward, I feel like our relationship just, exploded and became just what it is today. So, talk to me a little bit about being at that stage of your career, having some young buck like me in front of the whole room and just taking that moment and saying, "Okay, fuck everybody else. I don't care. I'm not, there's nothing on my shoulder that I'm worried about. I want to get
exactly.
better."
Exactly. I mean, there's no place for ego in this business. I'm sorry, there really isn't. There are many egos in this business. And people think because they're good at what they do, they deserve to be able to walk on water. That when I was coming up, as you were a paragod, people would throw water on the floor so you could walk on it. It's like, oh, for the love of God, guys, really, stop. Just stop. You're a guy doing a job, and part of your job is to stay current, get better. I don't like students on a regular basis because most students aren't there for the right reasons. They need the hours, they need this, they need that, they're moving on, they're doing whatever. But I would say one out of every 6 or 7 that cross my path, they're in it to actually learn and do stuff and know stuff. And it's like, all right, let's bring you along. And I teach because, well, they need to learn, but because they're more up to date than I am, I generally pick up things that I wouldn't pick up under other circumstances. Things like refreshers and the in-service trainings. Sometimes they're good. Most of the time it's a rehash. Most of the time it's just something you have to kind of get through in order to check a box, do whatever. But you don't learn a lot of theory. Give me 2 seconds. That's better. You don't learn a new theory. You don't learn a new skill. You don't learn, you know, you're not kept current. So when you have a good student, take him, because he's gonna have something that you could need. And the simple truth of the matter is, if your ego gets all screwed up by a little kid going neener, 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 I know something you don't, you need to work on yourself. I'm sorry. I mean, just because a young guy knows something I don't, and you're supposed to know things I don't. You just got out of school. That's the way this works.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I always say the day I feel as though I can't learn anything new, I need to hang my shirt up and go find a new career, because there's just no room for that in this game. And you were one of the original people that truly taught me that. So for that, sir, I do thank you. So after 24 years in emergency medicine, one of the biggest things that I think all paramedics and anybody in the first responder game will face eventually is burnout. And after 24 years, how have you avoided the inevitable that I feel like everybody is going to experience at some point or another?
At one point, I had burned out. I was ready to be out of the game. And I went back and I got a master's degree. I started doing HR, which was completely different than this. And I was going to start to transition from one to the other. And then suddenly EMS decided to really pay. I mean, they decided to really pay well. And I said, "Oh, okay. So this is where we are. This is where we're going to be. This is who we're going to be." But the difference is for the first time I had a choice. When you go into any profession, whether it's emergency medicine as a doctor, a nurse, an RT, a paramedic, whatever, you tend to pigeonhole yourself. So the way to avoid burnout is to give yourself options. Have the ability to step away and you lose the hopelessness of not being able to step away. And that's very important. Just having that ability completely changed my outlook as to why I go to work. I'm here because I want to be here. I'm not here because this is the only thing I know how to do. I mean, I kept looking at you trying to get you to go into day trading because you were doing so well with it. I'm like, you sure you really want to do this? Are you really sure? Yes, I am. But in your case, if you ever decided to walk away, you could go back to the day trading. I can go back to HR. We have started a farm here because we're absolutely insane in our 50s. And well, a farm seems like a great idea. And that makes me money. To say HR makes me money. I don't have to do this anymore. I'm here. The money's good. That's a big part of it. But I could simply go, you know what? This was my last call. I'm done. That changes your perspective on this a lot. The other thing that's really important is have a lot in your life that has nothing to do with your job. We make friends in this business because trauma bonding. We do things together that normal people don't do. We go into houses and see terrible stuff, and sometimes we see a lot of poop and a lot of puke, and we make terrible jokes and do all of the things. And so we become very good friends, like you and I have. But at the same token, we get together, and I don't care about what call you ran. I really don't. If I go to a wedding, please don't set me at the EMS table. When I am off the clock, I am away from this. Just I don't want to know. I would rather go sit, you go to your typical EMS wedding. I mean, because we've all been to them, because all of our friends are paramedics or they're nurses or this or whatever. Tell you what, I'm going to be at the bar sitting with Uncle Harry, having a scotch, discussing the finer points of whiskey and thereabouts. I don't want to hear war stories. I don't care. When I'm at work, I'm at work. If I'm teaching, that's fine. If I'm in my regular life, there's nothing on my card that says, "Hey, hi, I'm a paramedic. I was a firefighter. I was this, and that." No, 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 no. I am Joe, guy on the street, and you wouldn't know it. And you have to put a hard line in the sand that says, "Hey, this is work. This is not work." And so I have bunches of friends that all do this, and they know that, if you need to talk to me because you're having a rough time, we're going to talk. But aside from that, I don't care. What are you doing at the house? What kind of kitchen did you put in? What kind of siding did you put up? What'd you do to the car? I mean, these are the things that interest me. Oh, you're starting a farm. Let me help you. That type of thing. It's that very solid line in the sand so that you're just not encompassed by it all the time.
Yeah, and it's funny that you had mentioned having those options to be able to leave EMS if you chose to, and how
Yeah.
powerful that was. I experienced
Yes.
a similar, I had a similar experience to that myself, and you're right. I ended up kind of taking this left turn a little bit, got into this home inspection thing, and
Yeah.
it was great, and it was just something totally outside of medicine, and I got there, and eventually I realized I don't think I really want to do this, and it rejuvenated my love for medicine. And it's funny that you had said that, because when you were saying, I was like, wow, you're right on the money,
That's
that it had nothing to do with doing something different. It was just having that option and feeling like I wasn't
But
trapped.
it wouldn't even just be paramedics. It would be nurses. It would be doctors. It would be anybody, because you put a lot of time into training to do just this one thing. So what do you do if, for whatever reason, physical injury, physical ailment, that suddenly you have to take an office job? Most office jobs, you're not going to step in and be ready to go at the wages that you're used to making. So you feel that even if you're hurt, even if you're sick, even if you don't want to do it anymore, you have to in order to keep up your lifestyle. Because there are expectations from you, from yourself, and from your family. So when you actually figure out ways ahead of time that you can make a switch, you can make a change. Okay, now this is where I want to be. This is not where I need to be.
Yeah, and I think you made another really good point of separating work life and home life and keeping that balance there. There's a time to bring up calls, to share the war stories, and I can attest at many of your barbecues, we don't talk shop. We really don't. Every now and again, somebody will bring up something, and that's acceptable, of course. But for the vast majority, like you said, it's not talking shop. It's about how's the family, what's new, what are you working on,
Yeah, exactly.
etc. And I think that has a real importance in not letting that trauma that and what we all do experience in EMS and in nursing and healthcare in itself be brought home and cross over where it starts getting a little dark.
Yeah. I would never suggest two healthcare professionals get married. There's just really then just one thing to talk about. My wife does nothing about this business, and she's like, "How's your day?" It's just fine. It's just usual crap. Yes, ma'am. Anything I need to know? Nope. Because just leave it over there. It's fine. Leave it over there. I've got people for that if I need to really hash out a call. But you know, anyway.
Yeah, and it's funny because my wife is obviously a nurse, as you know, and she's just in a different world of medicine than I am. So we can kind of feed off of each other a little bit and express our day without it being too much of that bringing it home and perseverating on it. So I will say there is a flip side to that as well.
Fair enough.
So after 24 years, because you've been in this game for so long, I want to ask you, is there still a call or a type of pathology that you still kind of get excited about? That for me, I still love watching a CHFer go from this absolute panicked, unable to breathe, thinking the world is collapsing around them, and we arrive and we're able to just truly change that very quickly, generally speaking. And to me, even after all these years, I still get really excited over that pathology specifically. Is there anything specific that you still
It's called
enjoy
instant
doing?
gratification. You want to see something happen right now. I want to fix you now, damn it. Now.
I do. I
That's
need that in
exactly
my
what
life.
you're doing.
I
Yeah.
need that in my life. Yeah.
I don't want to know that you're fixed an hour down the road or 3 hours down the road. I want to know that what I did fixed you right now. Specific pathology, I don't know. Not really. I don't get excited by much anymore. I really don't. I do the call, I do the work. You do it to the best of your ability, and sometimes when it works out, and again, you get that instant gratification of, hey, when we started this, your life was sucking, and now your life doesn't suck quite so bad. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I wouldn't sit there and say a specific pathology, but I completely understand the instant gratification.
Yeah.
So pretty much any call where you kind of go, we went from, oh my God, this is all terrible, to at the end of the call, we're sitting here laughing and joking and sign here and give me your money and whatever else. Yeah, that's a better call.
You're right. It is the instant gratification, I think, that I'm
Instant
after.
gratification. Yeah. I don't think, like I said, it's the pathology per se. It's I want to know that I fixed you.
One of the things that I find people that don't work in this world tend to ask, and I don't feel as though they're trying to be rude or disrespectful in any way, but it's always, oh, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? And in doing this podcast and reaching out to people and starting to talk with more and more people, there's something that I want to change with that. And I'd like to reframe that question to still be able to kind of dive into your brain in that vault of yours a little bit. But the way I like to reframe it is, Do you have a call that stands out the most that's just memorable to you in some way or another, whether it be you made that big difference or it's just something that humbled you or anything to that effect? What call stands out the most to you out of your entire career? Is there one that still sticks with you?
There are all kinds of calls that stick with me in for different ways for different reasons. Some because you're right on the money and you're the right guy at the right time doing the right thing. And then sometimes because, wow, I really did suck that day. I have those too. A specific as to really sticks with me. Not really. Just because, again, I've been doing this for so long that I've seen a lot of the same thing just many, many times. Like, the feelings stick with me. Knowing that I absolutely nailed it, got it right, or just, was able to sit there and take someone out of a bad situation and make their life a little better, or wow, dummy, you really missed something there. And then that's the, hey, remember that? You're never doing that again.
I want to stop you right there for a moment because you just talked about something that I struggled with a lot early on in my career, and that was beating
Sure.
myself up for making a mistake or missing something.
Hmm.
What advice would you give to a new paramedic that is in that situation where they may have missed something, they made that mistake, and now they're just beating the shit out of themselves? What would you tell them?
Are you done? Are you done? Really, I mean, are you done? Because there's there's a much more constructive way to deal with that. Did you do the thing? Yeah. Did it really not work out the way you wanted? Yeah. Are you going to do it again? No? Then it was a good day anyway. You can beat yourself up if you want to, but did you learn anything? That's really what it comes down to.
So the take home point is knock your shit off and learn
Yep,
from it
knock it
and
off.
move on.
Say exactly, because nobody gets this right all the time. Um, yeah, so I'm sitting here thinking about something like that. New onset seizure in a older guy, and I'm going, you don't have seizures. You don't have seizures. You don't have seizures. What the hell are you doing? You don't have seizures. His wife is looking at me, he doesn't have seizures. Of course he doesn't have seizures. His heart was giving out. His heart was giving out, causing his brain to short circuit, so he was having a kibby right before he went into cardiac arrest. Did that ever happen to me twice? No. I can pick out a kibby seizure right before they go down like a fart in a car. It's like, oh, that's a good one. And in fact, I was working with a younger paramedic, and I knew it was going to happen. I'm looking at the patient going, he's going to go down. There's no doubt in my mind. He's got that terrible cardiac, blah, blah, blah. He is about to code. Of course, I don't have anybody there yet. I've called for them. And as I'm starting to get my act together and get ready, she looks at me and says, I need the narc box. No, you don't. He's having a seizure. No, he's not. What do you mean? He just arrested. He what? He just arrested. Go put the pads on him. Go look. Hey, Matt, what? He just arrested. I know. He said, you
Amazing what
see it
experience.
once. Yeah, you see it once and you will never forget what that looks like. And now neither will that medic.
Right. You start putting those moments into your own Rolodex, and that is the experience that starts to take over in those moments. And that's why I think working with another medic initially is very important. When I first started, they threw me to the wolves, and that was a terrifying experience.
They threw all of us to the wolves. My first paramedic job was working down on Cape Cod, doing heavy cardiac transfer work between sometimes the Cape, sometimes Martha's Vineyard, going up to Boston. And it's you, a LP5, a little ventilator that's about yay big, and you have nothing. And meds that you've never heard of, and they're saying, whatever happens, don't touch it. Are you serious? And that's how we ran, you know. And it was 3, 4 hours at a shot. It's just what we did. It wasn't right, but it's what we did. And you got better providers out of it in some cases, and you chased away some folks that given a little time and a little training, probably could have been very good. They just never stuck with it long enough because it had the shit scared out of them. So it was not a kind profession. It just wasn't. And the feeling at that time was, well, the streets are tough, the road is tough, this is tough, that's tough. If you're not tough, then you probably don't need to be here. Now, that wasn't right either. You know, if it's getting that rough, first of all, step away, call the cops, and then readdress the situation. You're nobody's punching bag. It's not your role. Your role is to be a reasonable, nice human being so you can actually deal with reasonable, nice human beings. And if they can't be, well, then we call the cops and figure out why. Then we go a different way. I said, it was a much different time.
I feel like it's a lot more softer these days in regards to the aggressiveness within the other your other coworkers, right? Like it was you couldn't show your weakness or
Oh, God,
express
no.
the fact that you didn't know what the hell was happening without feeling like you were gonna just get beaten
Oh, no, God,
down.
no. We ate our young back then. You know, like I said, they brought me into Manchester to oversee the hardest shift in the company. The former supervisor had just let it go completely because he had no control. He had no control because he was a very nice man. It's not who he wanted to be. He just wanted to be a nice guy. They said, "You want to be a supervisor?" Yeah. Why? Because I want the additional $2, $3, whatever it was an hour. And so then he has it, and these guys ran him ragged. And then I show up on the scene. Okay, we're going to do it this way. No, you're not. We're going to do this. No, you're not. We're going to do that. No, you're not. Are we going to have a problem? Yeah, let's have a problem. Oh, wait a minute. You know, I said it was a different way of, first of all, you don't even see those types of personalities anymore because it just isn't socially acceptable. Um, the older guys have mellowed out and kind of understood that, well, no, we really didn't do it the right way. Because if they haven't, they don't have jobs because everybody these days, every facility, every company, whatever, everything is zero tolerance regarding any kind of aggression or abuse or anything like that. So you have to use your words. You have to find other methods in which to reach your employees, and your employees have to reach each other the same way because the old ways of just using raw aggression, yeah, that's done. That's completely done.
Yeah, and I think the approach nowadays is definitely going to allow for people to improve in a better way opposed to just feeling like shit all the time. But I will say, every now and again, to be knocked off that peg, it really is humbling. And for me personally, I had those moments where somebody just pulled me aside and ripped me apart. And again, it's not something that I enjoyed, of course, but I learned in those moments. And those are the moments that will stick with me for the rest of my career.
Sure. And we're doing the same thing just in a gentler way. I've got a young man who, NHTI medic, very good. I'm For a first year medic, he is seeing things that guys with 10, 15 years of experience don't see, just the luck of the draw. And he is right now consistently coming up on top. And I'm looking at him going, keep it, you know, keep it under wraps. I hate to tell you, there's going to be the one, you're going to be on the wrong side of it. You better be ready for when that happens because nobody gets it right 100% of the time. And how are you going to do when that day comes? Oh, it's not going to come. Oh, please. Really? Please. Because this is my first day. I've never seen this movie before. So stop. No, it's gonna come, and you had better be mentally ready for that. And when that happens, you'll come see me, and we'll talk it through. But yeah, it will happen. And sometimes the bad thing just happens regardless of your best efforts. You have had a really good streak. Um, I think you've done better with the calls that you've gotten than some of our other providers, so that's good for you. But at the same token, you've also had some luck on your side. So don't think that this is how it's going to be all the time.
Yeah, I think that's solid advice. The world of EMS has been changing for quite a bit now. And one of the new things is the integrated healthcare and the community paramedicine. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it has its place. I'm not necessarily sure it should be a paramedic, but then again, I'm not sure it shouldn't be a paramedic. I like it from the standpoint of keeping people out of the ER because, as we all know, emergency departments are an incredibly expensive venture. We spend so much money in providing emergency medicine, and more often than not, it is a loss leader. They never bring in what they cost. It just doesn't happen. So the more people you can keep out of the ER, the better. I like the integrated mobile health. I like the community paramedicine. I also like the teledoc system, so that we're keeping folks at home until we can't keep them at home. Now, I think it's probably a great place for older medics to retire if that's what they want to do. I'm not sure that there shouldn't be some additional training or an additional certification, but I also haven't done the job. If and when I decide to retire off the streets, I will probably myself become a practice manager for like an urgent care, maintain my paramedic, and then handle the bulk of the managerial work just because that's also part of my background. But like I said, I haven't seen the community paramedicine up close. I understand the concept. From what I'm being told, there's not much, if any, additional education. And if you're going to go that road, I think it probably needs to be a little bit more specialized. And honestly, folks that are doing interfacility transfer are probably better suited to it than 911 folks. Just because 911 folks, they don't use pumps on a regular basis. They don't have a wide variety of meds that they come in contact with because they have what they're provided with, not just seeing what all the hospitals are moving patients with. So they have they're the adrenaline junkie with the narrower scope versus the guy that's willing to sit there, do the miles and take the longer calls. That has to think a little harder.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the potential for paramedics to have options to get out of the
Sure.
world of on the street or the helicopter or the emergency room. I feel like those are the three main areas right now that with your paramedic certification that you can go and work and find yourself. And I have a few friends that are starting to get into that role, and I'm excited to learn more about them. I'm just curious to know what other street medics and people that have been in this game for a long time, how they feel about that. And one thing you really mentioned, and I'm really an advocate for, is that additional education. If they're going to use paramedics to start preventing people from getting into the hospital, I think that's one area that our education and training really doesn't focus a whole lot on. But I really think that there's a real potential to have this amazing new world for EMS or for paramedics at least to find themselves in and provide great care for their community.
So it would just be some kind of expanded scope, or maybe just like an add-on class, and now you're a paramedic with an additional title of mobile integrated healthcare provider, or something along those lines. Because like I don't think the paramedic adequately describes that role. I think it's a good place to start. But then again, a paramedic is a good place to start for all kinds of different things. Just depends on how much time you want to take. But I mean, you could probably sit there and educate adequately for a role like that in anywhere between, say, 3 and 6 months. I
What do you
mean,
think?
like, it's just, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what do you think about having maybe a medic nurse duo type of team?
Not necessary. I mean, honestly, nurses, they've got more education. Um, I think that a lot of it is hands-on. I think that having a provider, say via telephone, so you can sit there and say, hey, I'm seeing something that looks to me like a cellulitis or a fungus or something. Let me take a picture of that. and send it to the doc, and then have the paramedic see what he thinks. So I mean, that's much more of that nurse, that paramedic doctor role. Nurses, they're much more important these days. Like I said, when I started, you had doctors. There were no PAs. You had nurses. There were very few aides, and there were just nurses everywhere doing absolutely everything. The current structure really has changed. You see fewer doctors. Now you have PAs and NPs that kind of work as an intermediary between them and the doctors. Now you have nurses under that, but you have fewer nurses because fewer nurses are available. So now you have all the ancillary staff that works under the nurses. So a nurse has become a much more important resource. So I'm not sure I would bother putting nurse. I would get nurses. I would get nurses away from the mobile integrated role. You know, retrain the paramedics because there's still tend to be more of us, and then let, say, for the street work, let the advanced and the basics kind of backfill more of that. So then you have the street, and then you have the street medics just more overseeing what they're doing. So that this way, there's just everybody has a place, everybody has a role, and everybody knows exactly where they're important and where they're best suited to be. So I don't really see a need for nurses in that role unless it's really a sick and critical person, and then probably they shouldn't be home to begin with. But as far as the routine stuff, use medics. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this all goes. And again, it's in its infancy stages. And just like anything, it has the potential to become something great, or it has the potential to be something not so great. So I'm excited to
I
see where
think
this goes.
I think the big question is how are they going to pay for it? It's like everything else. How are you going to pay for it? If you expect the hospitals to simply foot the bill in order to keep people out of the ER, it's not going to work. Grant money only goes so far. But if you can actually get the insurance companies to pay at a rate that is not the same rate as going into the ER. So now you have the person coming to you, and instead of being a $3,000 ER visit, it's a 800 buck whatever with a copay of $100 or whatever the heck it is. That would do it. So it's going to be a question of simple economics.
Yeah, it always boils down to the money, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does.
All right, Matt. So I have one final question for you. If somebody was planning on getting into EMS in 2025, what is the best advice somebody with your experience could give them?
Oh, I have it's a can talk, and I give it to every new person coming in, especially if they go from, say, basic to paramedic. Because generally what happens is they're 18, 19 years old, and then they go to paramedic school at 20, 21, and by 23 they're a paramedic. And suddenly the world is their oyster. And this is a lifestyle talk. It's nothing to do with the job, but I'm going to give it to you anyway.
I'm excited. Let's hear
Uh,
it.
New kid comes in. Okay, so he goes to EMT school. His buddies are making 15 bucks an hour. Now he's making 22 bucks an hour. Life is pretty good. You do your 40 hours a week. You work a little overtime. Life is fine. You're living with your parents. You still have your car that you had in high school, but now you have money in your pocket. Now you're ready to date. Life's good. Your girlfriend notices that, hey, we can go places. This sounds like a great time. So you go and you do that for a while, and then you go to paramedic school, and you probably wind up losing that girlfriend because, well, now you're not around enough. Because, well, she wants you there all the time. She wants to play with your money and stuff like that and whatever. So then you become a paramedic. Now your buddies are, 20, 21, you're 20, 21. And now you're making 27, 28 bucks an hour, and they're still making 15 bucks an hour because they're still at Walmart where they started. And now you've gone and you've done a thing, and now you are a professional. You have a legitimate professional job. You have an adult job. So you're going to get a girlfriend again. But first, the car that you bought back in high school, it's given up the ghost. So of course you need a new car. No problem. You've been living at your parents' house, so you're not paying rent. You're paying very little rent. You're helping out around the house. You're doing a few things. You pick up a few groceries, whatever. So basically, most of your money is yours. So the first thing you do is, I'm going to buy a car. and you're not going to buy a good used car. You're going to go out and you're going to go buy that 2025 Tacoma that's $75,000. And then, of course, you're not just going to do that, but you got to put the wheels and the packages and the stuff. So that by the time you're done, you've got a fully tricked out Tacoma, and that's great. And it costs you $900 a month or $1,000 a month, but that's fine because you're still living at home with your parents, and you're bringing home, for the sake of argument, $5,500 a month. You still got $4,500 a month to play with. You're doing okay. Now you've got the car. Now you've got some money. Now you've got the girlfriend. Now you need the apartment, because that's how that works. Because who really wants to keep bringing their girlfriend back to their parents' place when whatever? Because she's not going to go for that for long. So then you get the apartment. Okay. So now you have a $2,000 a month apartment to go along with your $1,000 a month car. You make $4,500 a month. Now you've still got $1,500 a month, but it's okay. There's plenty of overtime. I'll work a little overtime here. I'll work a little overtime there. I'll make up the shortfall. Nobody will be the wiser. No problem. Okay. So the girl says, this is great. We're going to get married. We're going to have kids. Okay. So now that apartment has to go by the wayside because now you've got 2 kids. And now you've got the truck. Now you've got her truck. How much is she working? What does she do? Not really sure. But so now you need a house. So now 2,000 a month has become 3,000 a month. Plus utilities, plus it's a fixer-upper and you need to do some stuff and all this other crap. So now $4,500 a month is your absolute barest minimum. Now your overtime is mandatory. Your overtime isn't for you anymore. None of this is for you anymore. Now it's for all of you. Is this really what you signed up for, sport? I don't think so. Because now you need to fix the house, cut the grass, do the things, and you need to come up, for the sake of argument, with between $1,500 and $1,800 a month in overtime just in order to stay comfortable. Now you're gone all the time, or you're busy all the time. Now you've got 2 small kids at the house. Now you've got a wife who isn't quite so cool with what you're doing because, well, reasons. So now she's grumpy. How is all this going to work out? If you're going to do this thing, understand, and this is a bigger life lesson, I think, in general, but stay within your means. Don't jump at every new flashy thing just because it decides to jump right out in front of you. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in a hurry. You're going to be completely stuck and hating your life in under 5 years.
I didn't know where you were going with that initially, and you took me on a beautiful journey there, and you really painted a wonderful picture. And I feel like I can't let you go now without having one follow-up question to that.
Sure.
Do you still think it's worth it to get into EMS in 2025?
Oh, more so now than ever. It's finally really paying. I mean, when we started, we didn't make a lot of money, and we worked a lot of hours because we didn't make a lot of money, but you could work a lot of hours. These days, you can actually work 40 hours, a 40-hour week, no mandatory overtime, no scheduled in overtime, and you can live. You decide to work some overtime on top of that, you can live nicely. Question is, are you going to be smart with your money? Yeah, I would absolutely get in now.
I think that's a fair point, and I agree that the wages have definitely improved, even from when I got in till now, and that excites me, especially for those that are in it. And I'm excited to see where the future of EMS goes because it's just continuously growing. So we shall see, right?
Yeah, we will.
All right, Matt, the legend Cerbone, this has been a great time. I can't thank you enough for coming on here, man. I'm looking forward to talking with you in the future and seeing what adventures you found yourself in.
Yeah, last known vitals. Got to see it all the time, every week. Got to see who you have next.
I appreciate that, man.
I'll talk to you later.
All right, Matt, take care.